once again want to welcome you to the Life Connected podcast, where all things Celina are discussed and determined sometimes, depending on the guest. But today is a special, special, special day right here as we enter this hot part of the summer. Our July podcast guest is none other than former Celina Mayor and known to everyone as Mr. Celina Corbett Howard. We are so thrilled to have Corbett Howard, president of our branch of Lamar National Bank, and just a long-time pioneer leader in this community. It's a privilege to have you today, sir.
Thank you, Mark.
Honored.
Great to be here.
Thanks for taking time. We just want to talk to you about the thing that, other than your family, is most dear to your heart. We're going to talk about your family some too.
Yeah.
But that is Celina, Texas, and all things Celina. You moved here quite a while ago. You've led here. You've lived here. You loved here. You served here. And you're still doing all those things seasons later. And I want to talk to you first about just your initial arrival here. You had a illustrious career in the apparel industry. You and I, with my love for Dallas and your tolerance of that love, you've told me all about your time downtown at Hager Clothing Company. What was it when you were in the apparel business that made you decide, you know what, I want to get into public service and do something? It probably started early in your life, if I know you well enough.
Mark, it started back in the old days. I know probably about 1992, I got involved in precinct politics. And Ronald Reagan had just come out being president. And we had George H.W. Bush. And kind of got involved. I thought, Sue and I have two adopted children, Skip and Blakey. That's right. And we got involved, and it was kind of fun. Kind of took over that precinct. Tony Goolsby was the state rep, and it was always been his precinct. And he thought, who is this guy that walked in here with 8 votes and took over the precinct? But that kind of got me flowing a little bit. And really, I thought, well, I'm going to move out of the city. My new responsibility is Walmart with a label that we'd created called Reed St. James. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to look north and actually look north to Dorchester and looked at land and had a contract on it, couldn't get clear title. In the meantime, my dear friend Andy Harvey called me, and you know Andy. Very well. And Andy said, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm looking at buying some land up in Dorchester. Get out of that contract. We're going to buy land in Celina.
Wow.
And that was the beginning, and
changed everything.
And Sue and I have loved it. We raised 2 grandchildren here, all the way through Celina schools. So Celina's just been that special place. And what attracted us were the people.
That's
Mark, right. That's the uniqueness of Celina.
That's right.
There are families here, multi-generational. And they're just friendly, and they reach out, they smile at you, they say howdy.
That's right.
And that'll bring you here.
Yes, sir.
And then when you get here, you say, you know, this is pretty special, and I want to help this grow in the right way. And that's really why I got involved.
Working on an article for the Life Connected magazine with you, I learned that public service really goes back even generations. You had a granddaddy who was a local mayor, and then, of course, you served the United States during Vietnam. Talk about how those two influences have molded and shaped you into who you are today as a leader.
Very good. Well, talking about my grandfather taught me a couple things. One, that tax dollars don't belong to government. They belong to the people.
Yes.
And that was the first thing I learned, and that was important to me. And later on, you'll know that when I was researching, we were doing our determination to move to Celina. Harvey and I just thought, you know, this is Celina, a little town. Taxes aren't a big deal. Well, taxes were a big deal, big deal. And I remembered what my grandfather told me, and I was determined that I'd get involved in this community. And one of the goals I had, and one of the achievements we had, is over those 5 years that I was mayor, we reduced our tax rate by 20%. Very, very pleased with that.
Yes, sir.
I wish it could continue because I think that's important. It's important to our small businesses, and it's important to our residents. And so that's the goal. My grandfather taught me that. He was Frank Corbett Howard Sr.
And he was mayor in?
He was mayor in Portales, New Mexico.
Portales, yeah. Wow.
For 6 years, and I've still got some of his writings.
Of course.
And, it's pretty neat stuff. It's really
incredible.
neat stuff. So.
And service was in your genes through your grandfather, and then you donned the uniform of the United States Army. Tell me about what you learned serving people today that was really sunk into your heart when you were on the front line.
Well, I learned a couple things. One is it's important. Teamwork's critical. Teamwork, even in training, is critical.
Yes,
you don't survive if you don't have somebody to your left and right that are supporting you. That's something very seriously that I learned. I got to experience it all. I went to basic training in Fort Bliss, Louisiana, or Texas. I went to Tigerland, Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Yes, sir.
Let me tell you something. Thank you, Lord. I go to Fort Polk because I'll tell you what, I was in shape when I ended up going to OCS,
Bet you were.
Fort Belvoir, Virginia. But it's all about teamwork, and you started learning how important it was to relate to one another, because at OCS, where I went to get commissioned, you were rated every week by your peers. Let me tell you something. You had to be motivated. You had to be somebody that was willing to help the other guy.
Yes.
I'm thankful I had my lovely wife, because I was already married, that she'd make pokey bait runs. Now you're wondering, what in the world's pokey bait runs? That's where she'd take a duffel bag, she'd go to McDonald's, and she'd buy 10-cent cheeseburgers, that's what they were then, and French fries, and pull those back, and we'd have to sneak out of the barracks, not get caught, and bring that. Well, let me tell you who the popular guy was in that barracks. Me.
And
Thank
Sue
you,
was the
Sue.
popular
and
gal.
Sue, and let me tell you, and Sue made the difference, and that's that's why I think our life's been. So.
I think that's the beginning, really, of just the third influence that I noticed working on that article with you. You had your granddad's influence and your love for public service and politics.
Yeah.
You had your service in the military, which just gave you deeper and stronger love for country.
Right.
But then you had your faith and family. Yeah. And some people flippantly tag that onto their biography.
Yeah.
That's not a flippant tag on with you. Faith and family for you shaped your political career.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
And by the way, those are the same values that shape Celina.
Yes.
Or they have.
Yeah.
And we love to preserve it. And that doesn't mean that we believe in uniformity.
Sure.
It means we believe in unity.
That's right.
And I hope that that's something that's important. When I look back, Mark, and you have milestones in your life, and I can tell you the milestones that in my life from Vietnam, that one night I flew 108 missions with my counterpart. We no longer had free fire zones in Vietnam, so my counterpart and I would fly almost every night, and in support of our different teams, our PF teams and RF teams out in the field, because they're always getting mortared and all that. We're on a mission. We come back, they drop us off. The chopper leaves to go back to Canton headquarters, and some 10, 15 minutes out, his rotors freeze. They drop 1,500 feet. They're all gone. Wow. I just got off that chopper.
Wow.
That's called a milestone.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's wasn't my time.
That's right.
And there's a couple of others like that. And I look back when I do my testimony, and those milestones are important to me, because I think it just tells you God has a plan for your life, and He has it, and He'll unveil it as you go. And I've been very fortunate to be involved in many, many opportunities.
And outside of those crazy places in Vietnam,
Yeah.
right by your side through all of your public service has been Sue.
Absolutely.
And that's made a massive difference in your political career, would you say?
I would absolutely agree. And she was very active. Yeah. While I was mayor, Sue was Main Street president for 7 years. Wow. Now, that's a long time, dedicated to helping Celina develop our downtown area.
Yeah.
And so, yes, very privileged.
That's awesome. It's 2002. Fast forward with me. It's rewind now, but fast forward from that story. Yeah. It's 2002. You are now sworn in as mayor of Celina. Yeah. Tell me, just quick answer, what was the population of Celina when you became mayor?
Probably about 1,800.
1,800.
Yeah.
Today, just for fairness, we're at what-ish?
58,000.
Okay, so let's jump
like
just
that.
a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're at 1,800. We're in the early days of laying infrastructure, laying groundwork, casting vision for what would become Celina today. What was on your mind as the mayor? What were you going to have to do in 2002 to make ready for what we get to experience and enjoy in Celina today?
Okay. Well, I already mentioned a key one, and that's lower the tax rate. That was a goal I had.
100%.
But what was really important, there were two things you had to do. You had to build an infrastructure, and you had to build the roads. You had both of those were keys. And in those early years, when we were small, we didn't mean much. But one of the important things I think from that is we had to begin to build some allies. People had to know Celina's out there. We're 80 square mile footprint. We're ultimately someday going to be the destination of the Dallas North Toll Road and the East-West Outer Loop. If you just get a feel for that, you understand how important it was to be able to. You had to do both fronts,
yes.
And you had to have people that could help you get there. And Mark, like you, I bet it was fortunate to be in the political world to know and start building relationships 25 years ago, and that helped an awful lot. Louise Sines. Yeah. I know you know Louise Sines.
Absolutely.
I had the privilege while I was mayor to meet Louise Sines in those early years and get to support Rick Perry, who to me was the Texas miracle. Yes. Rick did that.
So Louise was with Rick Perry at the time. He would go on to become chief of staff for Governor Abbott, for people who may not know who Louise is.
And Rick Perry.
Yeah, that's right.
He did
that's
both.
Right.
And he was just a dear friend, and he had this whole Northwest area. And so we spent a lot of time together, and ultimately it came out to help, and you know him, and he'll introduce you. But it was important for us to have those kinds of relationships. Yes. I remember Amandale Sines. He was the chairman or the director of TxDOT. Okay. And I remember him coming out. We said, hey, our road downtown, our business 289, it's awful. He said, I'll get a group. We'll get out there and get it. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. Wow. We got it resurfaced all the way from where it turns off Preston Road to where it is out by the high school.
That's incredible.
And it's amazing how those kind of relationships work. But we always had a great relationship, county level. We thought it was important. And I want to give credit. One of the things I want you to know in all of this, it's the people around me. That's it was people that helped.
Thank you.
I was just thinking about Jane Willard.
Yes.
And how Jane Willard helped us. She had incredible contacts both at the county level, and she'd always tell me, we need to be involved at the county. We don't live in a vacuum.
That's right.
We're a part of probably the fastest growing county in the state of Texas. We need to be a part of that. We need to serve on those committees. I always appreciate it. I always thought that was important for us to know that.
And you did that.
We did it.
You got
That's
us a seat at the table.
What we did. Absolutely.
Celina moved from the kids' table to the adult table.
No
right?
doubt about it. And it helped us. And you know the story of taking Celina, a team from Celina, 15 consecutive sessions of the legislature, because we knew that was important.
Which is 30 years.
15
years. Groups from Celina you took to Austin
30
over
years.
the years.
30 years.
And yet that's every other year is a legislative session.
Yeah.
So that's 30 years
30
you took people from Celina to immerse them and let them embrace the process and understand it so they come back here and make a difference.
Absolutely.
Gosh, that's incredible.
And we battled. You know, if you can just imagine a community. When I began to be mayor, when I was mayor in 2002, I think the footprint of Celina was about 2,500 acres. Wow. 2,500 acres. Now, you can't do much with that. No, and we had to build on that because we were a target for municipal utility districts. That's right. MUDs were looking and saying, this is it. Let's get out there. They can't service with sewer and water. They can't. So let's just get those, create our MUD district, and we're going down the road. Well, if you knew, that's a death knell to the city because that's a tax value you won't enjoy, and you won't enjoy for many, many years. And wouldn't make you sustainable. That's right. We were successful fighting those. And why do I think we're successful? Because we took a group of people every other session. We knew who was in charge of natural resources. We knew that chairman, Republican or Democrat. We were in their office. They knew who we were, and they helped us with legislation. And that was very, very positive.
That's incredible. There was an era during that time, your early years of being mayor, that you would say this phrase. I read it in your writings that you shared with me. You would share this phrase, and some people thought you were crazy, and yet you saw it. You would say this: "We are Frisco of the '90s." Yeah. Tell me what you were seeing, what was going on in your mind when you were looking at 1,800 people
Yeah.
in 2,500
Yeah.
acres in Celina
Yeah.
saying, we're Frisco of the 90s.
Yeah, yeah, I believe that. First of all, we knew we were larger in size than Frisco, and you could look and you could track where they were in their years, and age-wise, we might be 85 or something in Frisco, but we knew we're going to catch up with those guys. There's no doubt. We knew it was going to move north, and we knew and I always believed this. I always knew 380 was a major arterial, and if it wasn't for that, we would blow Prosper out of the water. But 380, it's a reality. It's not Prosper, it's 380, and that all of that retail you see along retail, it's just logical.
Yes.
157,000 cars a day. They're going to do well, and it's not Prosper people.
That's right. So you saw that, and
Yeah.
you decided, look, it's time that we create Celina's first comprehensive plan. You knew that if we were close enough to that 380, that it was coming our way. You knew that the tollway was eventually somehow, some form going to come through. Right. You knew of talks of this outer loop at the county level. Again, all the stuff we're seeing today, and we didn't have a comprehensive plan. How did you change that?
Well, I was fortunate enough in 1999 when I was elected to council the first time that the EDC at that time, great group of people, had put together a little program. And I got what was great for me was Mayor Long said, Corb, I want you in every one of those meetings. I want you to observe and see what's going on, and seeing them laying out some individual plans for the future. And I thought, we don't have a plan. We got 80 square mile footprint. We have no plan. We don't know where it's going. We have not laid it out. Yeah. And I thought that was very, very critical. And so that became kind of a guidepost for me, sitting there and listening to some real leadership. And I've mentioned some of their names, and they were wonderful people. Then I thought, you know what? We got to make sure that nobody thinks this is my plan. If it gets put into that kind of a box, you're not going anywhere because you're just not going to be able to bring enough people. And so to me, it was critical that you brought a lot of stakeholders and brought those families that were 5 generations, and they were part of this, and then brought business leaders and brought school board people and brought some council people, and let everyone sit down and say, guys, here's our footprint. How do we want to see this go? And they put kind of a general program together that laid out a comprehensive plan. And that time was like for 5 years, because you just kind of, you don't have a crystal ball. You're just trying to do it. But then from there, it led us to do a Preston Road overlay. So Preston Road would be unique. And that was accomplished. Then the ultimate, several years later, we do a toll road overlay, because those are key arterials, and it kind of defines who you are, what those look like, and how they're zoned. So we did do that, and I was very proud that group, that was 2002, that became effective. So that was part of the planning that began to let us do the infrastructure plan. What do we need in water, sewer? Now remember, and all of this is going on. What is Celina? Celina is the old donation. It's downtown. You got cast iron pipes. You got infrastructure. Oh, the fun times in the council when the folks would bring their mason jar with their brown water and set up on the dais, and that was.
You don't miss some of those meetings.
Oh, those were a challenge. Let me tell you, those are a great challenge. Yeah. But they were the focus. They were a focus that we were going to get that corrected, and how important infrastructure was.
And it seemed that plan was successful, because you made this quote. You said it boldly, and it got picked up by a lot of places. You said this: you come to Celina, you can turn on a faucet and get water. We are open for business. Yeah. That was a bold statement for a town that had mason jars full of brown water, but it was changing. What was going on? How did that all look as you began to implement that comprehensive plan, and people could trust as something as simple as you turn on your faucet, you're going to have water. Come to Celina, we're open for business.
Oh, yeah, Mark. We had 3 wells in this town. 1 failed. They gave us 2. The 3 wells produced about 900,000 gallons a day. Celina wouldn't exist today if that's what we still had. We had no guarantees where we could buy water. I can remember as clearly as yesterday going with Mayor Long to sit down with Jim Parks, who was director of North Texas Water Utility. And he said, we're not selling Celina. You'll never get water from us. And I was with Olin when we went to the Upper Trinity Regional Water District and sat down with Tom Taylor. And Tom Taylor said, I'm interested. I think we'd look at it. And we had to come back and get a council vote. By the way, that vote was, if I remember, 3-2.
Close.
You're one vote away, and you'd have still been the town of 1,800. That's a fact.
Yeah,
Or
you'd have
be,
water.
Yeah, you'd be all mud districts.
That's right.
All of it would be mud districts. And but we were able to do that, and that, I think, started moving us ahead. So we have the guarantee for water, and as you know, then from there we had votes like our pump station out west of town. That was a 2-2 vote. I broke the tie.
Wow.
Didn't want to invest in it. And of course, you've read some numbers of what those initial what they produced. Ultimately, what we did 20 years ago set the stage that pump station could serve half of the needs of Celina build-out. Not bad, huh?
The build-out.
20 years ago.
Not today.
Oh, no, 20 years ago.
Gosh.
And those are kind of remarkable stories.
So remarkable.
Yeah.
And at the same time you're doing this comprehensive plan,
Yeah.
you're playing with Celina's water, which is the most precious resource, and everybody in Celina, even all these years after you've been mayor,
Yeah.
surely you know everybody still has an opinion about water.
Oh, absolutely.
And then on top of that, think of this. It's 2002. If my memory serves me right as a Dallas kid,
Yeah.
the tollway in 2002 stopped at Legacy Drive in Plano.
Yeah.
So the 121 in the tollway, what is today, was still a four-way blacktop intersection with a light.
Oh.
So the tollway stops at Legacy, and you're up here in Celina pounding your hand, demanding a tollway study and a tollway commission.
Yeah.
What did you see? What did you think? Did you just know in your heart that the tollway would one day blaze through here like they're building it right now?
Mark, this is great. This is a great story. I drove toll road every day. We lived in Dallas at the time, early on, and I drove down to Hager and used the toll road. And you knew how convenient that was. You knew what that meant. And Frisco didn't have even the toll road. They had some access lanes, but they had no toll road in Frisco. And I'm sitting down, and Olin and I still were good friends. And as I moved on to mayor, and I'd still consult with him, and I've written stuff about Olin and what I wish they would honor him because he really was a visionary. And we'd sit and talk about it, and he'd say, Corb, you need to create a toll road commission. I said, a committee? He said, no, a commission sounds more official. You got to be a commission. That's toll road commission. And he said, then you've got to pick people that you know, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to be able to get land donated where you can go to the NTTA and say, hey, just want you to know in Celina, whenever you get ready to do Frisco, you don't have to stop. You can just come on because we've got land dedicated for the NTTA. So it was important to get the right people. Well, I got Rex Glendenning. That was a good start.
It's a good choice.
Got Steve Robinson.
Good choice.
Got Bob King.
Yeah.
Got David Light. I'm missing someone, but that's all right. We had a great team. Prosper didn't help us. I'll just tell you again, they didn't help. But we started reaching out to our neighbors from 380 and Prosper north, and we secured every inch from 380 to 428 and got all of it dedicated except one piece because it was a little rectangle. The toll road went right through it, so you had to give those folks money. Other than that, every inch of that was dedicated. And then we had it dedicated back. We had those folks sign it to the city and the city to the county. Never wanted the county to come in and say, oh, we got those. No, the record is it went to Celina and then went to the county. So Rex Glendenning, I can't say enough. And we partnered on so many other things.
Right.
With that, it was important. And then the next thing was we've done that much. We're still in fear of the mud districts. Even though Light Farms became a magnificent development, great community development, we're still very concerned. Rex helped me over the next several years to get voluntary annexations over 10,000 acres. And that effectively started changing that dynamic.
That was a game changer.
That was a game changer.
Yeah.
Game changer.
That changed the world.
And
we are talking with, for this July podcast of Life Connected, we're talking with Mr. Celina, former Mayor Corbett Howard, and it is fascinating. I hope you're enjoying listening to this, and if you're like me, you're probably going to listen to it and nerd out multiple times and learn something different every time you do. You were involved, Corb, with the Celina EDC before your time as mayor. After your time as mayor, you've always understood that even though all of this infrastructure is so rich and so necessary, if we don't take care of small businesses and attract larger businesses, nothing's going to be accomplished here. Talk to me about your passion for the EDC and for business in Celina that burned inside of you over the years and still does.
Well, I have to tell you a story. You have to know a little of the background. It's interesting. Of course, and you know, I think, Mark, that I was mayor, and I think I could have stayed, but you know, I'm trying to make a living. I just want you to understand, when you're mayor, if you do it right, it's hard to make a living. I promise you. So, but I'm traveling to Bentonville, Arkansas, and I am consulting. I have a couple companies that I consulted the last few years that I was in the apparel industry, and I'm in Bentonville, and it's about July 15th, 2008, and I get a phone call, and it's Craig James. Now, this board, while I'm mayor, most of those guys are still on it from the early years. And I get a call, and he said, Corb, we're going to hire an executive director. I said, okay. And he said, board and I are sitting here, and they're saying, call Corb. If Corb's interested, we're not even going to post this. I think Corb would be perfect for Celina. So I said, well, Craig, that's great. I'd like to talk to Sue, and, you know, maybe we ought to pray a little bit about it. And I said, when do you need to know? He says, about 5 minutes. This meeting's over in 5 minutes.
Pray fast.
5 minutes. So I said, all right, I'll get back to you. So I'm sitting there in my office in Bentonville, Arkansas, and the other room is the president of my company. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm thinking, wow, Lord, why did this thing pop up? What's the deal? And I just said, you know what, this happened. These guys are very happy with me. We've got a nice business. And so I just, you know, at that moment in time, you just say, you know what, I think I'm ready to just step out and do this. So I called him back, and he said, great, Corb, you're on. I did not know this, Mark. This is an incredible story. Amazing. Nobody's closer to Walmart than I. I mean, there was years there that I had a badge to Walmart. Clicked through the door. I went back, saw my buyers, divisionals. Wow. And 2 weeks after I made that decision, Walmart announced they were closing their apparel division in Bentonville and moving it to New York. I didn't know that.
My goodness.
So I took this, and I'm all pumped. It's 2008, and you know the rest of the story.
Gosh.
Recession hits.
Yes.
Oh, we're poised to blow it up. But you know what we got to do? We got to plant the seeds, and that's what we spent a decade doing. And I will take credit for nothing because it's a team, but I promise you there's not a development in Celina, Texas, residential or in the retail end of it that I haven't visited with them many, many times. Yeah. And I'll give credit to Carmen Roberts. There was a decade there that Carmen and I visited every developer in Dallas, Texas. Brokers, developers, you name them, we did it. I loved maps. As you know, I get this from Rex Glendenning, you know, the king of maps. King of maps. But we started developing the EDC maps, and we'd be on schedule. And it's just amazing. Hillwood would call us and say, hey, it's been 18 months. You need to come up here and tell us what's going on. And, of course, that led to several developments that they've done. That was the other deal. Carmen and I had the privilege. I got a phone call, and Fred Balda, and he said, Corb, we want you to meet us at our hangar at Love Field. So, okay, I'll meet you at the hangar. And get Carmen, and come on down to the hangar. We're going to fly Celina. We're going to make a decision today on our first subdivision. And by golly, that day, flying around Celina, we're going to do that. Corbett, who do we talk to? And I said, the Wells sisters. They own that land that became Bluewood and Liliana. That was their first development. And we got the privilege to being on that chopper with them and flying it, picking that land. So there's some great stories like that. Mark, those are great stories.
It was about the time I met you. You mentioned 2008 when you and I met. And I remember you at the time telling me, I said, Corb, what are you doing? Man, I'm headed to Las Vegas to sell all these big box stores with Celina. And I'm looking around, there's 7,500 people. Mm-hmm. What does a box store care about this place? And yet you were relentless going out to those conferences, those conventions. You'd go anywhere in the country on any day and talk to any developer about Celina, Texas. And I think the first, if my memory serves me right, that whole Brookshire's, McDonald's, Taco Bell. Tell me what a difference maker. People may drive by or use that shopping center today and not realize the impact and on everything that simple shopping center had. It was first.
It was. And McDonald's was our first national brand. Those are criticals. You laugh and say, well, it was McDonald's. It was a big deal. Taco Bell was a big deal. Brookshire's again. We put some neat stuff together on that, Mark. We Nancy Underwood, dear Nancy, who's passed away. Nancy came to me and she said, so what can we do? We've got to put something on the table for Brookshire's. And I said, well, we're a 4A, so I can do infrastructure. How does that sound? She said, okay, that might work. So we ended up with a formula we put together, and that was our first big award. We gave $144,000 incentive for Brookshire's to come in. She turned around, and how she did it and how we got it plugged in is she said, okay, $144,000. I got to have infrastructure for the strip center, so I got to put that in anyway. She goes to Brookshire's, gives them the 144 in the way of a long-term lease, just lowered that whole lease program for long-term. And we got it. We were against Prosper, and it was a scary proposition because it's still 8 miles closer. We talked about 380, and but a teamwork put that together.
And you had to pass damp laws. I mean, right? There was a huge fist in the air to us selling beer and wine in Celina.
Mark, 2004, I'm running for re-election. I got to have a damp election because that's the last piece with Brookshire.
And a damp election is
beer, wine.
Yeah, there you
it's,
go.
It's grocery stores.
It's
what you want. It's what grocery stores have to have. And, mercy. I just want to think. I got to think first, Celina. I always say that because we passed by 13 votes, the damp, and I got elected by 15 votes. So I told you it was pretty tight. You know what? That began working that cycle. And I don't know if you were present for our groundbreaking for Walmart, for the new Walmart store. And I can still remember that story from all the way back in 2005. And you're right, we have 4,000 people. And I'm meeting with the president of Walmart Central United States, Michael Moore, and he says, Corp, I got to ask you a question. Where's this store going to be? And I said, see my map? It's right there. Well, the morning we did the groundbreaking, I said, this morning we're on the very spot that I pointed out to Michael Moore, 2005. You can just think.
20 years ago.
20 years ago.
2 decades.
20 years ago.
Wow.
And that's kind of special.
Yeah.
And it took all those years. People don't understand. You've got to do that. That's what it takes. And ultimately they'll say, hey, we appreciate it.
That's right.
You've told us we should be here 10, and they shouldn't be here 10 years ago.
It's so fun. We're with Corbett Howard, former mayor of Celina and known as Mr. Celina, on this July edition of Life Connected podcast. We're so glad you're a part of this. Come on in and listen to the part that matters most. I think if I talk to Corbett and know him well enough, we've talked about the political side and the infrastructure side, but your passion has always been community, culture, and quality of life. You wanted people, whether Celina was was a little tiny place with 1,800 people, or whether it's today, knocking on the door soon, upwards of 60,000 people, you wanted people to know that this is where people should want to come to live. Not just to have a house, not just to have a business, but to do life. And we talk about life connected today.
That's right.
What is it to become a city this bigger than just infrastructure and all that talk? What is it to mean? What does it mean to you to be a place where people want to come and live?
Well, I think a key to quality of life is an Old Celina Park.
Yeah.
Wow, Mark. Again, a 2-2 vote. I broke the tie. There were several councilmen that wanted to scrape the field and throw some seed down. It's Celina Park. And I didn't think that was vision.
No.
And had an incredible parks board. You know the names. Mark Palmer, my goodness, the man served 20 years on our park board.
Unbelievable.
And just a tremendous guy, but had a great parks board. Joe Belinsky, Mark Palmer, Steve Carey. You know all the names.
Absolutely.
You know them all. Great servant leaders. And that was a vision, and a lot of people came together to help us on that. But that park, to me, that was quality of life. If there's one thing a small community can do, build something that is the finest park, and I mean in Collin County. We had 3 mayors at the grand opening: Frisco, McKinney, and Plano. They came to our official opening, and they said, "Corb, be proud. This is as good as we've got in any
Absolutely.
of our towns." And we felt that was important. That was that piece of quality of life, and the commitment on it. Because at the same time, remember, I'm the EDC director. We're putting money together. Every year, we put $750,000 from the EDC when there was not much money coming in. We didn't have much retail to even build a cash base. But we committed those dollars, and those dollars went in to helping put Old Celina Park on the map. Wow. And some other people, great people that came up, stepped up, and helped us with that.
And today, Old Celina Park is a hub for this community. I mean, you hear cities talk about, we had 7,000 at this festival, we had 5,000. I'm thinking there are 5,000 to 7,000 people at Old Celina Park every Saturday in the fall.
Oh, absolutely.
It is a hub of our community. What does that mean to you when you remember the crazy ways you had to go about, first of all, breaking a tie to even get it off the ground, and then, begging banks for money and having some just God-type miracles happen to make sure that park got to open. What does it mean to you when you walk through there today on a Saturday and see those families and see those Celina families whose lives are being really impacted by that place?
Mark, it was people like Billy Ray Huddleston that got us a deal on the land.
Yes.
Bought it below market price. It was First State Bank downtown that later became Independent. But First State Bank downtown took the note. We couldn't even pay the interest. They just carried the note.
They just overlooked it.
Just overlooked it.
That would happen today, wouldn't it?
The OCC.
Never.
Never happened. Let me promise you. But they did that, and then it took people. I don't mind telling you, and I've told this story, and I've done it in a speech. I had gone to. I went to Merdad Moeidi, and who had done Carter Ranch. And he'd helped us with a pipeline that we had to have, water line. And he said, well, "What do you need, Mayor?" And I said, "I need $245,000." He said, "245." I said, "I got to pay this note at First State Bank, because if I pay this note off, it'll give me an equity position where I can go to the state and the county and get matching funds to help us with what we need for that seed money to be able to go ahead with Old Celina Park." And I said, "We'll work a deal. You've got this other development up here, and we'll just do some credit to park fees." And he said, "Okay." He sold that other piece of property a month later. Never asked again. Never talked about it again. Never asked again. But his contribution, and Joe Belinsky and Mark Palmer going to Austin and going to Collin County. Mark Palmer was also on the Collin County Parks Board.
That's right.
And we ended up with $1 million. $1 million become the seed money. We built a park for $6 million. Couldn't touch that park today. $6 million. Couldn't touch it. I think we added the parkland that we added on the north, where we added the new quad fields. I think it was about 20.
And you did it all for 6.
We did it for 6.
Unbelievable.
And but all those things had to come together, and it wasn't easy. You think, well, it's easy. No, it wasn't easy. But that's to me, that was so important because it was about quality of life. That's
awesome.
what Celina had to offer. And it's still today.
It's still,
as you said.
yeah, we talk about that. You also established, when you were at the EDC, you established 7 committees focused on everything from safety to culture to arts. Why was that important to you? Why was it important to, A, get all those people involved at the table, but B, to start stretching their thinking?
Yeah. You're speaking of the EDC
That's right.
visions
That's
plan. Right. And I just thought that each one of those set up guideposts. They were what all of them together was kind of the way you wanted the community to be. And you'd be so impressed. Mark, one day I'll share that with you. I still have a copy of that, which I just kind of keep in the drawer. I'll open it, look at safety, and look at, it's just wonderful. It's incredible. Water, public safety, police, fire, and just talks about the ingredients. And it was done by our team that put together the Celina EDC from its creation. It's some great people.
So fascinating.
Don Hendricks, Bob McKnight, and Lee Clendenning, Roberts.
Yes.
Oh my!
Just so many.
So many.
Too many
7 or 8 of them. They were just. Those guys really had vision, and I was so thankful that Mayor Long said, "Corp, I want you to be a part of that deal. Get in the middle of that."
That's
deal.
incredible. Again, we were with former Celina Mayor Corbett Howard. Corb, there was a quote that I heard you say. I didn't hear it in person, but I can hear it louder than that because I know your heart and I know your leadership. You said this to people years ago. Celina does not exist in a vacuum. Right. It was important for you and for people around you to see Celina's role in the broader North Texas region. Why was that so critical?
Well, because it takes all those folks. It takes in the political realm. It takes the county's helped us in many times. Our commissioner, Susan Fletcher, we've needed those people to help us and assist us. I'll tell you a great story. When we did the downtown tours, and so we've overlaid the downtown tours. We've been building this fund that'll help us build sidewalks, drainage, streets, all of those aspects. Well, we needed the county. We'd like the county to kick in some money on that. Well, because we don't live in a vacuum, and we had relationships with Judge Hill and Susan, and it helped us. We were able to, what did we do? We ended up getting $8 million over the long term to add to that fund to help us build some of that infrastructure downtown, and you know how big that is for us. We needed players at the state. We've talked about several of those. We needed people there that were there to help us. They knew who Celina was. And I can tell you one thing in Austin, they knew Celina.
And they still do.
They still did. I will tell you, talking about it, and I'm kind of proud of this fact. Took that first group to Austin in 1997, first off, and we got to visit with George W. Bush. He was the governor of the state of Texas. He was terrific to us. He helped me down the road on Marilee and the rural water districts. But each one of those, Celina, when we went to Austin, we started with the governor. Whoever the governor was, Celina got to see him. And I used to get a kick out of that one time we were down with Rick Perry, and he telling us a story. He said, "Guys, I think we ought to go on to lunch. We're waiting for the Collin County guys are waiting on it." And I'm thinking, here's Celina going with Governor Perry to the luncheon for the rest of Collin County, Plano, McKinney, Frisco. You know all the names. And we're coming with the governor.
That's right.
They're not. We are.
Right.
And I think that was something that we felt was very, very important. And
well, it's made an impact. I'm never around anyone in Celina when they ask me where I live, and I say I live in Celina, and the first thing they say, Corbett Howard. Everyone knows
thank
you because of the work, the labor that you put in, and the influence that you built in that town. You didn't build it for Corbett Howard.
No, I didn't.
You built it for Celina, Texas, and it's paid off immensely.
Absolutely.
It's such a touching tribute when you gave your final State of the City address. You said these words: "We weren't just marking time; we made a difference." What does that statement mean to you now when you look back all these years later?
Well, we were in the battle. We were there. We were working. It wasn't show. And I took that quote. That was Ronald Reagan's quote. And I don't mind telling you because I'm a Ronald Reagan fan. But that was his quote that he gave. And I thought how appropriate it was. We didn't just mark time. Man, we spent every single day. What did I tell you? Your business will suffer if you do it right. If you do the mayor thing right, it takes away. It's hard.
Public service is hard.
Public service is very
It's
hard.
always linked with sacrifice.
Absolutely. And it's funny, but I think it's a great story. I don't know what anybody else would think. We'd have council meetings on a Monday night. I had to be in Bentonville. I had an office in Bentonville. I had people. I had to be there. And I'd leave that council meeting at 10 p.m. and drive to Bentonville. Get there at 3:30 in the morning. Did that many, many a time. Because my commitment was I'd be there Tuesday morning in that office.
Wow.
By golly, I was there.
That's incredible.
But I could use that time, that 5-hour trip, I could use that time to be on the phone, keep working. Yeah. And so I was always privileged with that. I always thought that was important. And so I used that quote when I did it.
That's incredible. Corb, you were formed on the knee of a grandfather who gave his life to public service. Yeah. You served in Vietnam in some of the harshest conditions ever. You honed in on service and sacrifice being inextricably linked. You and Sue came to Celina and you lived that out. You gave of your life, your breath, your heart, your soul, your blood, your time, greatest gift, probably sacrificing things you shouldn't have sacrificed along the way. And recently, along came this Congressional Patriot Award. Yeah. It is as if I saw it selfishly, watching my friend. It was like it all finally culminated into something perfect. The recognition that perfectly was an imprimatur, this seal of approval on a life of service. Yeah. When Congressman Fallon gave you that Congressional Patriot Award, what does that recognition mean to you, and how does that mark your journey of service?
Well, he said they only get 1/1000th of 1%, 1/1000th of 1% of people that get that award. And if you know Fallon, he's he played for Lou Holtz, and so it's kind of neat in the congressional record where you have the Congressional Patriot Award, and my name's right next to Lou Holtz.
I love that.
It's a great story. I told him that. He got a kick out of that. But you know what? It's special. It was humbling. And I always say it was the moms and dads, it was the businessmen, it was our police officers, our firemen, it was everybody in Celina. Any credit comes to all of them. Councilmen, you may disagree, but remember, they've stepped up and said, I'm going to serve. And you got to appreciate that. Too often today, we're just too divided, and that doesn't help anybody. Doesn't help our community. Doesn't help your values of your home or your business. So it's just important. Remember, it's not just you, but it was humbling. I will just tell you, it was humbling.
Corb Howard, thank you for your time today. Thank you for taking care of us.
Thank
and
you,
friends,
Mark.
That does it for the July edition of the Life Connected podcast. We thank you for being a part of this journey with us, and thank you for learning today from Corb Howard, Mr. Celina, our former mayor and everyone's friend. We look forward to seeing you in future versions of this podcast, future editions, and until that time, thanks for making Celina's Life Connected podcast a part of your listening journey. We hope you'll tune back in the future. Have a great day and a great rest of your summer.